have a really big problem, and I honestly think it's the reason why Democrats lost the election. That one twink, Dean, I think.
Recently, I went on Dean Withers' podcast. Kicked me because I was talking about Hassan.
Gotta leave the guy alone, dude. He's already afraid enough.
You're not like shitting on people that like support him, and I like that. I feel like most of these creators, like Harry Sisson and his whole group, just kind of like shit on everyone that was against his view.
I just want to talk about Destiny for a second.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. No way.
Hey, you told me you had. It seems interesting. It's something different that we've talked about today. Is your problem with you said or progressive content creators? Is that what you said?
Yeah, more. I just have a hold on. I did not expect to be able to come up.
Hey, you've been there for a while.
But yeah, I have a really big problem, and I honestly think it's the reason why Democrats lost the election.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, my main example is probably that one twink, Dean, I think.
Just try to be a little more respectful. I understand you're talking.
My bad.
Dean. So you're talking about Dean Withers, the young man, Dean Withers, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the way that that progressive talking points are like really shown in like social media nowadays. I feel like it isn't helping the cause like at all.
Like, give me an example. Like, what do you mean?
Let me think. Man, I was willfully unprepared. I just joined on a whim.
Oh shit! Because I don't know that Dean Withers is like a significant reason why we lost last election. Which is at least what I believe that's what you said. You know, and
yeah, I'm not saying him solely is the problem. I just think a lot of the content and the way it's pushed, like the people that there's no strong role models in the progressive sphere.
That's a better way to put it. So you feel, and by the way, I can understand what you're saying. You feel like, I guess optically, you feel like a lot of the progressive advocates are kind of beta cringe.
Yeah, okay. Pretty much.
Okay, like, that's different from what he's coming for. Well, listen, I understand where you're coming from, and I think that, like, unfortunately, I don't dislike anybody. There's probably a level of truth to that. It seems like a lot of the people that are more left advocating don't seem to have a particularly high priority of fitness or anything in that nature. There does seem to be a lot of, and this isn't a bad thing, but there seems to be a lot of more feminine leaning or looking male individuals, and I think for some people it's difficult to gravitate towards somebody like that, especially if you're a young man that appreciates their masculinity. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being more feminine man or anything, but I can understand how that would make you feel a little off-put in general. I don't think that should be the guiding principle for why you vote a particular way, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and that's basically just what I have to say, because that's the main thing I noticed. Because what is the one YouTuber like Nick is not green? That's okay. People like that. I just feel like they did not help the cause at all. Like,
are you a YouTube fan of mine, or are you just also?
I have been watching you since before the big incident. If you know what I'm talking about.
I've had several, but sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Nick is not going to be another, feminine considered left-leaning individual. I get that. And it seems like sometimes people get a little too comfortable and they start weaponizing their audience, or they stop being careful and they feel like they can say whatever they want without any real drawback, because they're their audience captured with people that don't necessarily care about regulating them, but then you get hit with the regulation and boom, I get that. Okay. Fair enough. So you think that progressives are cringe?
Yeah, I think the progressive commentary sphere needs a revamp or something, or we need, like, it sounds cringe, but we need somebody like Joe Rogan, somebody that progressives can look to, like, this is a strong figure, like, that people can look at.
Yeah. Well, what is happening? Sorry, my thing just like went. Do you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I got some weird notification on my TikTok. Yeah. Well, like a lot of people will say that like Hassan Piker is more of that Joe Rogan of the left. He is, and I don't particularly care for Hassan, but
okay, Hassan's a little too extreme.
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't. But for a lot of the atrocities he downplays and everything. But either way, like he is he's a tall, attractive, charismatic, confident guy. So he kind of does. He would be your Joe Rogan of the left as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably your best example. You know.
Okay.
I guess I personally wouldn't gravitate towards him. You know, maybe one day I can be a positive masculine figure.
Oh, you are. That's like you are the only political YouTuber that I can stand watching. So
I appreciate that. Well, you got to throw in a little drama slop too.
So.
You got to throw if you get you pull them in, you throw a little drama slop in there. You know what I mean? And then you get the political. At the same time,
it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable.
Gotta make it fun, right? No, I hear you. Okay, well, I appreciate that, but I know what you mean. There's like a lot of. It's funny because people will look at me and sometimes be like, "Oh, you're fat." Like, that's why you're obviously a liberal because you're fat. It's like, damn, dude, come on. I got a deep squat, bro. Leave me alone, you know?
But you actually have one more thing. So I've been watching you for a while. One advice you'd always give is like going into a trade.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I actually took the advice, and now I'm in a trade in welding right now in community college, and I'm like
that's fantastic.
To go into aerospace. So
that's awesome. Did you finish or you just started?
I'm like, I think I have about 3 semesters left, and
cool.
So we'll see how that goes.
That's great. And did you say you're going into aerospace? Did they put you on track to get a job like right out of?
Yeah, right now I'm on track to go into aerospace, like aerospace welding. I've got my aluminum certifications, my steel certifications.
That's fantastic. That's great. Yeah, trades are excellent, man. Like, you know what? As a young man, I never knew what I wanted to do, and everybody's like, "Oh, teachers, go to school, you'll just figure it out." It takes a while to figure it out. Trades are great. You might love it.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's make you good money, I think. And then even if you want to change, you'll have the money to change when you get like a little older, if that's something you want to do. I think that's fantastic. Hard to automate too. You have your job security.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, absolutely.
Very solid career. So good luck. God bless with that. Good choice. It's a good choice.
All right, thank you, man. I appreciate it for letting me up.
Yeah. Take care, all right?
You too.
Peace out. All right.
What's up, Papa Gut? I do have a small disagreement, but it's not really about Trump. Can I still go on?
Right. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to say I'm a huge, longtime fan. Do you remember One Guy's Opinion on TikTok?
Yes, that was a long time ago.
That's when I started watching your content, like way back then.
That was a long time ago. I appreciate that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've stuck out for 5 years.
It's been that long.
Anyways, I wanted to talk to you about one thing you say a lot is that you're slop content and that what you make isn't really like useful at all.
Yes, you know, I make slop. I make slop sometimes. We're all involved in like the Ethan Klein drama, of course.
Yeah, right. But like Ethan Klein, like that whole thing stems from like the Israel-Palestine genocide war, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it's, I don't know, a little bit more than just slop content with like the hate speech that Sisson is spewing.
Well, I think that there's a lot of crossover when it comes to politics and like sloppy drama. That's the unfortunate reality of the internet, you know. So, but I guess I try to speak with it.
One thing I wanted to tell you though is recently I went on Dean Withers' podcast.
You went on Dean Withers? Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, not that hard. Not that much of a compliment.
You mean you got to talk on the podcast, or you were just checking it out?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
No, I got to talk on it. He kicked me before I could get into anything I wanted to say, but he was only letting Trump supporters on there, so I had to LARP as a Trump supporter.
Oh, okay. That's why you did a ninja on him. Gotcha. You stealth attacked him. That's why he kicked you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he didn't find out though. He kicked me because I was talking about Sisson.
What? You gotta leave the guy alone, dude. He's already afraid enough of Hassan. You gotta give him a break.
But come on. I gotta rattle the cage, you know? I want to see what's inside his brain.
You're being a little sloppy guy. You're being Okay, so what happened?
I know. Okay, so what happened was I didn't even really so I just started lifting off some of the bad things that Hassan's done. Okay. I was not prepared for this conversation, so I was kind of scrambling my words a little bit.
Okay.
But I did that. As soon as I started listing off like some of the bad things he did, he just kicked me and said everything I said isn't true and whatnot.
Yeah.
I did clip that. And I put it on Reddit. Listen,
my God,
not my proudest moment.
Bro, you're sitting here telling me that I'm not a slop tuber, and then I got you going around, fucking causing problems with Dean Withers. What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's important, man. Like talking about like speaking out against like hate speech that Hassan does. I don't know.
Yes and no. If that makes sense.
It's not.
Listen,
Sorry.
for
Yes and no.
For Dean, I think that it makes the most sense to stay out of like the Hassan area because
yeah, but
it's Hassan's a tough one for him. You know, he's young, he wants that audience, and they have audience crossover. And Hassan, you know, most of the things he says are right, but then he'll also kind of allow his community to say horrific things about like that Israelis, and he'll justify like, you know, Muslim camps in China, and he justifies Russia, you know, attacking and annexing part of Ukraine. Yeah. Those are all very bad things, but I think we live in a time of very like a lot of extremism, and Hassan is probably the most like left extreme, but it kind of pales in comparison to the right extremes. And I don't think telling Dean to stand up against Hassan really makes any sense, because you'd have to sit through like 10 hours of Hassan content just to realize like how bad of a guy he is. Most people aren't going to do that.
Well, just watch the whole content, Nuke. I feel like
sure.
Watch the content. You just kind of skip through it.
I understand that. But if I was Dean and I was a young content creator who just started my content, and I was like I wouldn't jump head first into that. He should stay out of it. I would not.
Yeah, it's the thing is he's kind of stopped for defending him. I was like, oh, he didn't do that, but it didn't even like do the research to like tell me objectively if he did that or not. Like,
yeah, he's a little afraid. You know, he's not gonna jump. He's not. I don't know. I get why he's not talking about Hassan. Like, I'm not really that worked up over it. I totally understand why he's not going in on Hassan. I think he should just stay away from it. It's a lot. It's a lot of you have to go down a rabbit hole to look at like at like what's going on with Hassan. Hassan's done a good job branding people as all crazy who disagrees with him.
Yeah, I'm just worried that like Hassan, he's like not gonna like stay. If he stays away from Hassan, like that's not a problem. But like, you know, Hassan's trying to like, worm his way into like these communities. So like, I just feel like I'm worried that that's not how that's gonna happen. I guess we just see where it goes. Dean just seems like a perfectly fine person. Like I wouldn't give him too much shit. Like I'd give him a break. So. You know, I hope so. Because if you do that, that's the problem. Is if you go in there and you try to invade Dean Withers, and then you put clips up on here, that's just gonna make him more of like a Hassan fan, right? Like he's gonna be like, oh, these people are fucking kind of crazy. I didn't really like go hard into him. We just had a little bit of a conversation, like 4 minutes. I did clip that though, like I said. But when I clipped that this morning, I uploaded it yesterday. This morning, I found out Hassan made a whole fucking 15-minute reaction video on my 4-minute clip.
Wow! Listen, put it in the Discord. I'm curious about it. Put it in the Discord.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask if you could react to that. So like
maybe we'll see. Oh, you came in here to advocate for yourself. Maybe I'll react to it later. Okay, maybe after I'm done with the chats. Okay. All right, you put it in the Discord or send it to me on Instagram if you could.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna do. I'm actually in the Discord.
Yeah, send it to me on like Instagram or something.
Every month. I will. I look forward to that.
All right, brother. Send me like the Reddit, is that, or whatever it is. Or you recorded. Wait, did you record Hassan saying it?
Oh, yeah, I'll send you the Reddit.
Yeah, did you?
I did not record. I can send you the link to his YouTube video.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm curious. Yeah, so send that to me.
And then I'll send you the original clip too. I'll send you the original clip too.
Sounds good.
The other one. All right. See ya.
All right, brother. Take care. Peace out.
Peace.
All right, let's do it. Jesus, you got me curious, bud. What's going on?
Hello, what's up, man?
Not too much. How you doing?
Not bad. Just early Friday morning, I guess, kind of. One thing I want to talk about is how, like, first of all, I really appreciate how charismatic and like meaningful you are.
Thank you.
You're not like, I mean, you're not like shitting on people that like support them, and I like that because I feel like most of these creators, like Harry Sisson, and his whole group, just kind of like shit on everyone that was like
a little mean
against his view, I guess. And
yeah, I've had my moments where I've gotten a little frustrated. You know, I'm not gonna lie, but I try not to. It's when you talk to people, it's a little more humanizing. Although I don't know, do they do that to people, or do they just like when they talk about it, do they do that?
Like I've seen it all over TikTok. Like every single live.
Oh, they're clip farming.
Oh yeah, dude, it's so bad. It's like
You want to know what? I'm going to say something because like I know this is just so stupid. I was because I see Dean Withers and all them on my feed, and usually I'll see their prompt is like something a little more provocative, which I understand. That's the content strategy. And then maybe like a week or so ago, I was like, I want to get in. I want to try this out. You know, so I was like, oh, try. These youngsters are in the game. Let me try this out. So I popped in here, and I asked my YouTube chat. I said, what should I ask the prompt? I don't want to ask something like obnoxious. I want to be like a little more chill. And they came up with like, why did you vote for Trump? And then I'm on the fucking live, and he's got that like as his prompt. I'm like, what the hell? You know, what is he doing? He's stealing my shit, dude. He's stealing my chill vibes, bro. He's stealing my chill.
Bro, what I also don't like is like the transparency that they don't bring to the table. Like, let's say you, for instance, bring to the table. Obviously, he was paid by the DNC. I mean, it's proven multiple times, and it was just to spew out all this info, like why everything Trump's doing is horrible. And
do you disagree? Do you think he doesn't agree with the information that he's saying?
Some of it, yes, of course.
Because I don't necessarily care if someone's paid by the DNC. I can see how that would be a conflict of interest, because then if there are areas where you disagree, you know, that person's less inclined to disagree. But generally speaking, I don't necessarily care too much about paid by the DNC or the RNC. It doesn't necessarily matter to me. I'm more interested in like what specifically are the views that they have, you know?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to trust someone that like doesn't blatantly say like, or answer the questions like, hey, you're paid, and then they're like, no, I'm not. But it's like,
oh, is that what it is? They're like, oh, you're paid. But I would just say, hell yeah, brother, I'm catching that bag. I'm getting my dime, you know?
Yeah, for real. Just be honest. I think that's like what people are missing the point with. Like, you're not going to win an election by hatred. You're not. Like, just hating another party.
Well, Trump did a pretty good job winning the election with hatred. He was pretty intense. Like, admittedly, he was like, what was it, Sleepy Joe Biden, and even like Ted Cruz, he called him the Zodiac killer. Like, he was going fucking crazy. That's his whole thing.
I agree.
He's a little bit of a hateful dude, you know, and it works for him. I agree that Democrats aren't going to win with it. I don't think that that's their strategy going forward. But I do want to just bring up Trump is a little fucking. He has a lot of his moments.
I could agree, but one of the main reasons I voted for Trump is I live in Utah and everything is so fucking expensive, and it just seemed like Kamala didn't have anything to bring to the table with economics and trying to help out.
What specifically do you feel is like really expensive?
Well, the housing is fucked here because everyone moved from everywhere else to just come live here. Like, for instance, I pay for a 2-bedroom apartment that's $2,000 a month, and it's only like less than 1,000 square feet, and that and groceries and gas, and I have a truck, and so gas is fucking expensive. And I actually work in an oil refinery, so we make gas and diesel, and the only big way like you can really start to bring prices down, like let's say for trucks bringing in all your crap for groceries and stuff, is getting that diesel cheaper. And the biggest way you can actually get it cheaper is by promoting drilling and getting oil out of the ground, because let's be honest, we really need the oil.
Well, I think that Joe Biden released like barrel of reserves, no, to try to lower the price, and I think he did get the price lowered a bit.
Yeah, but the problem is they shut down the pipeline from Canada to the U.S., and that affected it dramatically because.
Well, my understanding was that, and I could be wrong, I'm not, but is that they had shut it down and then they opened it back up. They shut it down for environmental reasons, and then they decided to open it back up, mostly because there was a war going on, like Russia and Ukraine, and we were relatively energy dependent onto them, and like that's obviously going to inflate prices when you have to deal with those types of issues. And I think a lot of it had to do with a war that is Russia's fault, just to be clear. I also don't think that Biden, at least in my opinion, didn't make that clear enough to people. Like, you can give Trump a little credit. He's at least saying, hey, things are going to be tough right now. I never really heard that from Biden or his team. That's like, hey, things are going to be tough right now because we're in a war, or we're not in a war, but like we're supporting Ukraine in a war, and there's going to be like some complications when it comes to the energy prices. And again, like, he did try to alleviate it, and I think he did a decent job. I think gas is at a decent point at this point. I think he did all right.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I think also, like, back when he was in office in 2018. Yeah.
Sure.
I was.
Yes,
I mean,
20,
I was
20 like 16. Wait, no, what the fuck?
when
He
he
was
got in
vice
office
president.
no, when he was a president.
Oh,
When he got
okay.
in at 26, I wasn't old enough to vote, but I did notice that the gas got super cheap, and also that we were becoming more energy dependent and not trying to buy oil from other countries because like that's like literally the worst thing you can do because
You think
I
buying
don't
oil from other countries is bad?
I think it's horrible. Like I
I
mean it
like
creates I think it creates conflict. I mean the problem is like we have oil here.
I would say that it does the opposite of creating conflict. I mean, the biggest reasons, well, number one reason in my opinion to buy oil from other places is because then you could save we could hoard our own oil, right? I think that's to me that's a win. So that if we do at some point run out, not that we will, we still have massive reserves, and so we get to have the control over that. But I think it like lowers conflict. Generally speaking, if around the world you're buying from other countries, there's a reason why you wouldn't want to have a fight with them because then your economics are not tied up in those countries. And so from a war perspective, and I know Russia's still overextended their hand, from a war perspective, I imagine that like it will be a factor when people consider starting conflicts in general because they know it's going to have a negative impact on their economy, because that's how wars are fought now. Like there are on the ground people, obviously we know that in Russia and Ukraine, but it's also technology, a lot of propaganda, like public opinion, but then also tariffs. Like tariffs exist for multiple reasons, one of which is to pressure other countries into knocking it the fuck off. So I would say if anything it kind of lowers conflict. If you look at it like a bargaining chip, which we obviously are like the most financially abundant country, so we have like quite a bit of sway. So I like that control it gives over other countries, honestly.
Yeah, I mean the hard part though is like let's say we become energy dependent and we're selling oil instead of buying oil. I think that'll bring more money into our pockets, I guess you should say. I mean, maybe not for the American people, but I think it would lower gas dramatically with how, I mean, barrels of oil has already gotten cheaper.
Probably.
Right now.
I mean, I imagine it would lower, the cost of oil. Sure. I think that, sure. I think that it's probably okay. Not to like. I think generally speaking, gas is is okay. I don't think it's like a horrific thing. And I think again, like holding onto our reserves. In case of some kind of an emergency, like we go into some kind of a trade war with another country to release those barrels, to me makes a little bit more sense. Also, I don't know how much oil we'd be able to export. My understanding is the Middle East is so abundant with it that like I don't even know if we'd be able to sell it to that foreign market. But I'm not like 100%, educated on foreign oil practices. But my understanding is like there's some countries where it's free over there because they have so much oil. It's actually insane.
It's kind of like sad because it's like
They just like dump it in the water sometimes. I heard like they don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit. It's crazy.
Dude, it's brutal how much oil is actually in the ocean, but that's another topic.
Yep.
But yeah, I just feel like we need to get shit cheaper, and literally the only option I thought was, well, Kamala really hasn't said anything about the economy. She says it's great. People are doing great. It's like, no, we're not. We're all struggling.
I would say, because you mentioned housing before, and I don't think Trump ran on any type of I'm going to make your houses cheaper. At the very least, Kamala had like extended tax credits for people. I think specifically first-time home buyers. It was like $25,000 in assistance for first-time home buyers, and the extension of like child tax credits. So I think that if she had more time than 2 months, I think that, in my opinion, you could have seen that she would have been the better advocate for the lower and middle class. Trump has come in and really has just increased prices, and I understand it's through tariffs, but I don't really see a positive outcome from the tariffs that he's implementing, especially since he's going to a trade war with every other country. It's one thing to be like, hey, we're going to go after China or Canada or Mexico, but to go after everybody at once seems incredibly unproductive.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard because it's like you could make a point for everything, right? And it's like it's just hard to like decide like who to vote for. Like I really wanted to vote for RFK, but he was
you're an RFK guy.
kind of, but kind of not. Like I was kind of more leaning to Trump than RFK. But then like what I really liked about RFK is that like he wanted to get housing prices like a lot cheaper. And the hard part is like we have mega corporations buying single family homes.
That I think is one of the biggest issues.
It's so fucked up because it's like
absolutely.
It's like I don't think a big ass corporation. I mean, okay, I can understand it for like a small business buying their house because with their company, right? And
Yeah.
but not being able to screw over American families that are trying.
Well, that's what they do. They buy up a lot of infrastructure, and they'll either build homes and then they'll rent them out, which are incredibly expensive. Like right now, outside of my utilities, which increase my cost, my actual rent is $1,700. It's not bad. I pay the mortgage on my mother-in-law's house. In New York is incredible. My wife and I were looking into getting an apartment, $3,000 to $4,000 a month. That is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of Americans have this understandable frustration with when it comes to like how much money they have, and I think a lot of them misdirect it in a way at the government, but in the wrong way. Like there is going to be waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. Obviously, I would argue that a lot of it is really just like normal. I don't know if you've worked a union job before. You know, in general, when people work jobs, they're not working their whole shift. You know, you're coming in, you get a quota, you finish your quota, you're chilling. A lot of people work for maybe half their shift, maybe a little bit more. There's like really busy times where they work hard, which is obviously is important. And there's times where you're chilling. That's why you'll drive around and you'll see people doing road work, and it's like one guy's, stand doing work while three people stand around and jerk off. And I am concerned about that, but I'm also like not necessarily. I don't really care if people are a little lazy at work. You know what I mean? I was lazy at work as long as they get their shit done. But the bigger issue is that nobody's done anything about housing the housing problem, and that is a lot of it is big companies buying up houses and then selling, renting them out for an extraordinary amount of money. If you could cut people's rent expenses by a third, that's probably $1,000 at least a month that people have in their pockets, $250 a week. But people I think are misdirected. Like they're angry at the government, which they should be, but they're not angry at the government for the right thing. And nobody's proposed a solid plan. And we need to do something to rein it in. Honestly, there's a couple of things. Like in New York, they were buying Ubers and then renting them. They were buying houses for Ubers. Yeah, they were buying houses and then they were renting them for Uber because they could make more money than renting them out. And so they kind of did away with that. I forgot exactly what they did, but they did away with that, which I think is a good thing instead of taking up a bunch of infrastructure for vacation spots. So. But I do agree things were frustrating. Nobody's saying the right thing about what's really the problem, I think. I think a lot of old people don't understand a lot of this is technologically driven, and then a lot of government is they're too influenced by big lobbyists that are willing to spend millions and millions of dollars to keep the status quo running. So, yeah,
it's really frustrating, and I feel like a lot of it has to do with like just corporations trying to pocket more money, and it's like you're fucking over the middle class like so hard by doing that. Like my buddy, I think paid $2,700 for just a home, and it was rented out by a big mega corporation, and it sucks because it's like he's paying $2,700, but he has to fix everything in the home, and it's like, how is that even?
That's insane. That's wild.
Yeah, so he had to like replace his furnace and stuff, and it's like, how does
that even work? Usually, at least that's why you rent, is so that they will take care of stuff like a furnace. That's actually insane.
Yeah, I thought that was wild.
You should try to take it with him when he goes all the repair. I saw a guy on TikTok. He had like a like some kind of a garage or something, and they were moving him out. So he's like, "Well, I agreed when I came in to do renovations, but I'm taking all the renovations with me because I told the landlord, and so now the landlord can't rent it out anymore because the garage is shit. Like he took all the insulation out, he took all of his equipment out, like obviously, and all the lighting out because he put new lights up. So
yeah, just take everything you replace.
You made it. You might as well. So all right, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it. I'm in your Discord. I'll go ahead and like leave it, whatever. Just get in. But do you play any video games? Super random.
Sometimes I have like a gaming channel, but I don't really use it, and I don't know. I'm like very wishy-washy on games. When I do, it's usually like God of War or something, honestly.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
cool.
All right, man. You take care.
Well, yeah, you too, man. Have a good day and enjoy the live, and hopefully you don't get too much hate, I guess.
The people are nice. They're nice to me, I think. Yeah. I don't even really read the chat while I'm talking to people, so I don't know. Maybe they're being mean. You take care, all right?
Yeah, see you.
Peace. What's going on, brother?
How's it going, man? I've been watching your content for a really long time, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate that. How long? How long is a really long time?
Dude, like since 2020, probably. Like that's when I got on here on TikTok. So I've been seeing you every now and again, you know?
Very good. I appreciate that. All right. So what's up? You said what was your
I think it's the Democratic Party's fault they lost. Don't mark me as like a Trump supporter, because I'm definitely not. But I would like to say like that I feel like when I see a lot of Democratic Party operatives talk about the fault, like the reason why they lost, they'll usually like I've seen people say they'll attribute it to like the third party protest vote, the protest vote against the genocide, which statistically, if you add on like the 0.2% vote that Jill Stein got on average in each state, it would have not have made that large of a
Well, I
difference.
think also to keep in mind, there's people who actively decided not to vote in like resistance and in protest as well. But I understand what you're saying. Sure. So what do you attribute it to
No,
then?
for sure. And I feel like, but like that's not to say that those people would have like voted for Kamala for sure,
Yeah.
because at the same time, I feel like the Democratic Party didn't necessarily message on the things that they did do well. Like Biden, he did do a lot of things well. Like he objectively is the most pro-labor president we've had objectively.
Mhm.
And I feel like they didn't really message on that enough. And instead, Kamala did a lot of messaging on like foreign policy, which she clearly wasn't good at. And when they
Well,
had
she also, in her defense, she only had a couple of months,
yeah, and exactly.
Like, to
I
give
also,
her a little bit of credit, Biden probably should have dropped out sooner. Or she should have been. I mean, as silly as it sounds, she should have continued to campaign even as vice president. I feel like they knew to an extent that he wasn't going to be able to hit a second term, and I don't think it would have been a bad idea for her to be a little bit more vocal in the vice presidency. That could have probably helped her for sure. I mean, I generally agree. I mean, she just didn't have a lot of time, but they also did a bad job with their message. I never really heard. I wish I heard an expansion on how well she was doing, how well Biden was doing, because Biden did very well in his presidency, and we kind of like pretended that it's not true, and people have a meltdown when you say that because things were tough, right? Like things were tough. We had a pretty rough recession. Part of that was because of the conflicts going on around the world, like mostly started by Russia, and then part of that's what we were recovering from COVID, and that was tough. But we did better than most of our allies in our COVID recovery, and with our inflation, we managed it pretty well. Things were a little rough, but I wish we heard that because he did a lot of good. The Inflation Reduction Act he passed. There's like a CHIPS Act to build more computer parts back home for national security reasons. Big infrastructure bills to do a lot of like road and highway expansions. A lot of really positive things that he had done, and his presidency was calm, which is something that I value tremendously.
I agree. He did do a lot of good things for like in state for sure. Obviously imperialism is going to be something that's both parties are going to agree on. But if we're objectively looking at the United States itself, I completely agree. However, the average American populace, since Biden kind of was like a carcass and didn't really go on live TV as much as like a Trump is doing, I don't think they were as actively in the know of what he was doing.
No, I agree with that. That's the problem, is that they didn't brand themselves well. Biden did a great job, but they didn't brand himself very well at all. And I don't think that they observed that branding well enough, because that's unfortunately what it is. It's branding. Donald Trump didn't stop running for president. Like once he lost in 2020, he was still running, on this whole lie that it was stolen from him, which is insane. I do think it's something to keep in mind that part of the reason why Kamala lost is because she's a fucking woman. Like, let's be real. People.
No, for sure.
People still are not ready to vote for a woman in the United States enough to get her in, because she did okay popular vote wise, but I would generally say that if she was a guy, she would have done better. There's plenty of people who still think that like a woman can't do a guy's job, or that they think other leaders in the world will think that we're weak if we voted a woman, or that's something I've heard a lot in your blue collar jobs.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I live in like a very like steel mill predominant area, and that like you'll hear that a lot as well from like even the union guys who were aware of like the things that Biden had done. However, I will say though, like like when I say the Democratic Party, I don't see as directly Kamala's loss. I think it's like generally like in like even now we're seeing the Democratic Party isn't like pushing back necessarily the way they should be. Like Chuck Schumer is trying to pass that let the what's it called the budget pass or whatever. And so like I feel like just overall like Democratic complacency, and also like, when was the last time we heard like socialized medicine be on the table since like Bernie Sanders was running?
I think part of that is because the Democratic Party, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, is moderate left, and the Conservative Party is very far right now. There's conversations, they're false conversations, but conversations about cutting income taxes like significantly. There was a talk about no income taxes for people $150,000 and below, which is just stupid. That's like estimated about a third, maybe a little more or less of our yearly revenue, right? So that's just an idiot idea. But We already knew it was fake. It was a virtue signal, and we got the confirmation because Trump literally said, like, "Oh, we'll do it after we balance the budget." We were not going to balance the budget for a very long time. So, you know, but they're not going to mention healthcare because of that. Not to that degree. They're still not ready to support like a more universal healthcare. People still have like the Red Scare, the Communist Scare, in a weird way. They're not afraid that Russia, on the conservative side, for some reason, even though they're like a threat, but they're afraid of socialized medicine that would be cheaper. Go figure.
Yeah, especially like we literally had a dude literally get clapped in New York City because of healthcare, and like I feel like the Democratic Party, if they really like tapped, because I feel like that their base fell out. Like the Democratic Party's base is the left organizers, like the people who like, yeah, they'll shit on the Democratic Party, they shit on like the imperialist stuff they do, but inevitably they're going to vote for the Democratic Party because they are the moderate left party. So like I think with the, you know, like their base really fell out. The people that typically would have done, you know, door knocking for them, campaigning for them, all of that type of stuff, really just didn't want to show out for them because one, the messaging wasn't there, and you can't outflank the candidate.
I do also think that we are kind of in a weird extremes. Like the general Democratic Party is moderate left, but like there are a lot of radicalized individuals, both on the right, obviously that's the party, but also on the left, which would be like, you know, your people who didn't vote at all just so that they could say fuck you to Kamala Harris, even though she would have been better for like Gaza. And I think that some form of extremism probably appeals to them, and they're just they're not getting that in the Democratic Party. I'm not saying we should have forms of extremism, but there's no charisma and there's no real extremism mainstream enough in the Democratic Party. And like, we shouldn't have that unrealistically.
It's like equating left extremism and right extremism is just
I'm not equating them to being equally as bad. What I'm saying is that there's no appeal on the you know, Democrat side, no meaningful appeal for extremism, whereas there's meaningful appeal for extremism on the right side. That's Donald Trump. Like, he's a very extreme individual, but there's no meaningful appeal from the left. Even AOC is pretty, like, ever since she got elected, like, she's been pretty tame, which, by the way, I appreciate and respect. But Bernie Sanders also is not extreme enough for what they would really gravitate towards, because he's just kind of normal, you know. He's like, hey, universal healthcare. You know what I mean?
In 2020, if they ran Bernie in 2020 instead of Biden, I think we would not be in this situation.
I think if they ran Bernie in fucking 2024, he would have had a shot.
I think so too. Honestly, I think so too. Or you know, honestly, Tim Walz top of the ticket wouldn't have done bad either, in my opinion.
I don't know. Tim Walz.
I think he was a likable individual, but he just didn't do good on those.
I like him like the manager at Chuck E. Cheese. I'm going to be honest with you. The way that his resting face is always worried. It bothers me. He seems like a decent guy, but it fucking bothers me.
I don't know. I talked to a lot of people like here, like around where I live is like pretty like decently rural, but like right next to the city. So, but like, and a lot of people like really like Tim Walz's like demeanor. Like they remind him of like a high school PE coach or whatever.
Yeah,
so like
that is what he's like he's like the nice coach. You know, he probably gets things done pretty well. But like, I don't know, man. I was cool with it. It made sense. She needed to run with like an old white guy, and she did, which worked out really well. But he wasn't really aggressive enough. He was too passive to me. Like when he talks, he just reminds me of Bob Saget from Full House, but not the Bob Saget comedian. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't give me the energy that I feel like a lot of people would resonate with. That's what they need. They need a more extreme white guy vice president for a more moderate president for the next run. So like Gavin Newsom is already gearing up, which I think is a decent gear. I think it's a decent gear up. I don't think he's that bad.
Newsom. I love the housing market in California.
But listen, it is definitely rough. But he's the most charismatic. He's well-spoken. He's an older white guy. I think he has a decent shot. And he speaks well, and he's trying to reach across the aisle and talk to conservatives. Like he talked to Charlie Kirk on his podcast.
I thought that Charlie, I think that's the worst thing I think the Democratic Party, why is the Democratic Party reaching across the aisle when the across the aisle doesn't want to reach out to them?
Well, I think they do want to reach out to them. Charlie did reach out to him. I mean, he did talk to him.
Yeah, but like, you know, you're not like, they're going to stay within their own eco space as long as they can, because that's what riles up their base.
Yeah, but I think that like for a Democrat to win, conservatives need to be more comfortable with them. And everything is podcast now. Like, you can make a reasonable argument, a pretty solid argument, that one of the big reasons why Trump won is because Kamala refused to go on Joe Rogan. And so, you know, Newsom starts his own podcast. He has 4 years to run, just like Trump was running for 4 years under Biden. I think it's a smart play. I wish he went a little harder against Kirk, but I think it was a smart play. I think it was a decently smart play. I appreciate it.
I don't know. I would like to see like in my opinion, like just being like, you know, I'm 19, so like it's just like what I would like to see for like the like quote unquote left party going forward is either this is like the most extreme, like, you know, dream of mine, the dissolution of the Democratic Party. Like I think it's like it's to a point for me, it's like where they're fundamentally so paid in by the same corporate donors that are the Republican Party is paid in by, that there's not really a division. Like at the end of the day, they're not going to do much pushback on the things that they're also going to be making money off of, in my opinion.
Sure, I generally agree. Yeah, of course, they're also still, we'll say, institutionalized, for lack of a better word as well. Sure, I understand that. And that's probably why Trump won, because, you know, even though he's a fucking idiot, it's still it represents something different from the mainstream of the system.
Yeah, and like for an example of that for me was like, you know, when Kamala was talking about the border, like she basically was saying like, yeah, we're gonna lock up our border, we're gonna have like a strong border, and like are people gonna see that?
Well,
and
nobody's gonna believe that, because everybody feels Biden did bad at the border. Biden did pretty well at the border. The problem is that, again, they don't educate. So this was a huge problem during COVID, where COVID was very, like, the strain was very different. And we were underprepared for it, and, you know, we rushed the vaccine because we needed to get something out that was effective, and it was. But information was changing every day, and instead of being like, guys, this is a new science, basically, information is going to change every day. Let's be honest with our people. They decided that they were going to not do that, and they decided to keep the public in the dark. And that's the same thing that they did when it comes to Biden's border wall. Like, what was the problem with Biden? Why were there so many border wall interactions and crossings? It's because COVID happened, and then when COVID relieved itself, when it was over, when all these restrictions where you can't come in the country at all were over, there was a backlog of people that wanted to come in. And they never said that. Like, say that. Give yourself an argument. Say, like, hey, this is why it's happening. They never focused enough on Trump pressuring Republicans to shoot down their own Republican bill that would help the border by putting a lot more money and infrastructure and judges down there to expedite the asylum seeking process, which is a real problem. They never focused on that. Nobody's talking about that. That's a huge problem. Trump wanted the border to be a problem so he could run on the border. They don't talk. They just don't. There's just no. The branding, Democratic Party branding, is dog shit. It's instead what they're doing is they're getting a bunch of young kids to show up and to the White House and be like, hey, how are you? It's like, okay, why don't you do something a little more fucking meaningful? Which also might be a problem too, because like I know they're trying to pull in the young vote too, but I don't know how many like older individuals they pull in to try to have some level of representation for the party either. So it's really a branding issue. I think it's a whole branding issue more than anything else.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree. It's not just a branding, but like again, like the institutional parts of it for me are always gonna just be like pretty distasteful. But hey, I gotta dip. But I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. All right, brother. Take care.
You too.
Peace. All right. Hey, what's going on, brother?
What's going on?
Not too much. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. Did your I think your shit cut. I think your stuff unmuted or muted itself. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. What's going on?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I had a few different things. So I started watching you. I saw your content like 2 years ago, just like clips.
Right,
but
cool.
I only really started watching your like VODs like a month ago.
Very cool.
Yeah, no problem. I agree with a lot of what you think. The primary thing I was going to talk about was Harris. You had a guy earlier in the live who's talking about drilling for more oil and stuff.
Sure.
And Biden literally had the highest drilling of oil in the United States. Like he increased it more than Trump did. So that's like not that's not going to directly correlate with oil prices.
Well, I imagine that's going to alleviate prices. No, I think that one of the reasons he did that was to open up, to like lower the price of oil. Like he released oil reserves because of what was going on in Russia and Ukraine was inflating gas prices, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say though. I was going to say like it doesn't based on like the reason I was going to say that is because the war with Russia and Ukraine, drilling for more oil won't cause it to decrease the price, and then basically that's what I was trying to say. And then also I was trying to say about the Harris housing plan. I feel like Trump literally had zero plan at all for housing in general. He literally just spewed hateful rhetoric primarily just to get people riled up in buzzwords.
Sure.
Like you can look at his campaign page where he literally just talked about cut inflation. That's it. Whereas Harris, you can go on her page and literally has the housing plan with like multiple paragraphs.
Yeah, she has an actual policies on her. Yeah, Trump he ran on literally no policies. He's still just kind of like throwing eggs at the wall here.
So I guess where I disagree with you primarily is you kind of talked about how you don't think Harris did a great job with it. I think she did a pretty good job with the time she was given. I think she made a pretty good argument for her stances, and
I guess, yeah. I mean, she didn't. I don't think that she had enough time. I think that she probably made a mistake by not going on Joe Rogan. And I think that,
I agree with that.
As an American, like, I didn't really hear a lot. Like, the only reason that I knew what her policies were or what the problems were was because I looked into it myself. She didn't do a very good job giving herself, like, advocating for herself when she was running, in my opinion. So
I feel like the debate, which I watched your VOD on the debate. Great reactions. I loved it. Especially, I do feel like she kind of played more into like trying to debate Trump into like making mistakes, which I think she did a good job of and should have focused more on her own stuff. But I feel like when you're going against someone like Trump, it's pretty hard to just cut through and give your opinion on things when he literally will just cut you off and ramble.
Yeah, I guess. I think that fundamentally, I think that the Democrats just didn't really have a strategy on how to handle Trump yet. So they're kind of just figuring out, That's
I can agree with that. And then the other thing I was going to talk about was I don't know a ton about this, so I can't give my opinion entirely. Yeah. But I do know that I watched your VOD again about the Trump's. It was the speech in the House when all the Republicans kept clapping.
Sure, yeah.
And it panned to the girl who got a traumatic brain injury from volleyball from a trans athlete. I looked into it. There was no.
I saw the TikTok. She didn't actually have a traumatic brain injury. Yeah, I saw that.
And she kept playing sports. So I was just gonna bring that up because I was like, it felt pretty crazy to me that it was just a blatant lie. Because she kept playing sports and had like a whole clip montage of playing basketball.
I think that's unfortunately on par with how the Republican Party operates right now, is that they could outwardly lie about the majority of the things that they'll talk about and people eat it up.
Like the high school themselves posted that there was no actual evidence that the girl was trans at all. So it was
unfortunately, it's not gonna shake any conservatives off of voting for Trump because they're very, I'd say, indoctrinated.
I guess it just confuses me why people are so focused on these minuscule issues. Like trans athletes are such a small percentage of the United States population, where things like housing and other issues are way more prevalent in the border. And I feel like focusing on those is just not helpful. Like trans athletes, I think focusing purely on that is not going to be the way for. I mean, I don't understand why.
I think there's a few different reasons why. I think first and foremost, there are a lot of people on the right specifically who hate gay and trans people, and they look at it as a win to own the gay and trans people. They hate them a lot. They will actively advocate against their existence, despite the fact that you're safer around a trans person than you are around a priest.
Yeah.
They don't care. They hate trans people. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is that conservatives focused on the LGBTQ issue for so long that it kind of just like it's in people's heads now. Like they legitimately think that drag queens are a danger to children. They're obviously not. Like obviously, as long as you're dressed appropriately, it does not matter if you're reading to a kid. Also, your parents are taking you there. If they don't want to take you there, just don't. Who cares?
I agree.
And then part of it is that the Democrats refuse to be even slightly controversial on the issue, right? Like I don't know if I've ever really heard a Democrat say, "Hey, trans women are women, but if they go through a male puberty, they probably shouldn't play in sports. It's probably unfair." I've never heard that before from a Democrat in any meaningful way, except maybe Gavin Newsom like a week ago. So I think that maybe part of the historical political tactic is to ignore things until they go away. And that was one of the things. They're like, it's just noise. But I think you have to talk about it, and you have to talk about it in an intelligent way. And it's okay to offend people as long as you're not trying to be offensive. Some people will be upset with what I just said, but I'm not trying to be offensive, right? But Democrats are like they're so worried about appearing offensive that they won't say things that need to be said, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I can understand that. I was just basically wanting to hear your thoughts about why issues that are so I feel like are I'm not gonna say I don't want to say minuscule because it's important, but these issues aren't as I don't think as like trans athletes, like you've mentioned before, is such a small percentage of the U.S. population compared to issues where Trump literally had no housing ideas and all he said was tariffs and reduced inflation.
Well, and he sold tariffs though as somehow making things cheaper. That was impressive, kind of.
I guess
either that's impressive or conservatives are just incredibly stupid. I don't really.
I'm not claiming to be the smartest guy in the room. Obviously, I'm not. But I took one macroeconomics class in high school, and I could understand that why and how tariffs can be useful and why they can be useless in this situation. So, like, I feel like it's pretty baffling to me that people aren't willing to simply do 2 seconds of what are tariffs to understand this. It's not
Well, they really like Trump a lot and they trust him, and anything he says goes. I think that's what what it really boils down to. It's kind of what it is. That's he's got that. Like, that's why he could lie about like how much money we give to Ukraine. People
and he just spews out just wrong things. Like he just constantly will just say something that is not true, and nobody. That's the one complaint I had about Harris. When she was doing the debate, I wish she would have fact checked herself a little bit more. Because I feel like the mediators tried to do that, and then everybody said that they're like, oh, it's 3v1, like they're clearly biased.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. Like optically, like Trump is lying more than anybody else, but optically, it looks like they're teaming up on Trump, and a lot of the way that this works is optics. Like optically, Trump looks good in different ways. Yeah, they're not worried enough about optics for sure. I agree with that.
I mean, yeah, because like obviously it looks like it's a 3v1 when he's the one that's primarily lying, and he has to get fat. Like he said that Haitians are eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio.
I say if they were, who cares? I fuck dogs and cats. They're probably homeless anyway. Get them off the fucking streets. So fuck them. You know, they're doing us a service. Bring more of them over here if they're actually doing that. In my opinion, fuck it.
It's crazy. And like I said, like the only thing I wish she would have done, in my opinion, differently is the fact I think if she would have fact checked herself and been like, no, this is wrong, and then here's why. I feel like that was the only kind of way she could have done any better. Because I feel like at the end of the day, she was a black woman, and I feel like she overcoming that was pretty much impossible with MAGA. Because I feel like a good 75% of people who voted Trump are not gonna not vote him. I feel like nothing else gonna change.
We'll see. We'll see how things go. We'll see how things go. We're very early into his presidency, but I think a lot of his policies are rough. So.
I feel like he just didn't have policies. I mean,
that's why they're rough. Anyway, man.
He decided to run.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate you stopping by. All right, you take care.
Of course, love the content. Bye.
Thank you. Peace.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on?
Leviathans are gooning.
Okay, incredible. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to talk about Destiny for a second.
Oh my god. Oh my. Okay, what do you want? What do you want to talk about?
Okay, what I want to talk about is like. I know that you said that you're not going to be watching his content anymore.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you that he is definitely not the most knowledgeable on a lot of his stuff. But I think like
that's really not my issue with him.
The issue is Pixie, right?
No, so just to be clear, Destiny is knowledgeable on most of the things he talks about. I don't think Destiny is good. He's a bad person. He doesn't believe anything he's talking about. He's just interested in winning, and I don't think that it's necessarily good to prop up somebody who has no moral values or doesn't really care about what they're advocating for. I don't think that you can be somebody who constantly advocates for left-leaning policies in different marginalized groups and then in private send around, like, you know, nudes of girls to try to hit on other girls non-consensually. I think that's disgusting, and it's not even the first time he's done something despicable. You know, there's the whole Ryan Beard video I think is a great thing to look at, or my video reacting to Ryan Beard's video. So yeah, I just think he's just disgusting.
I think like right now our political landscape is so politically divided. Like even when it comes to like activities, like let's say weightlifting, that's a conservative thing, right? Reading, that's I
don't think so.
A liberal thing.
I understand what you're saying though. Like if you work out, you're more it's probably more of a chance that you'll be more red pilled, I suppose. I guess.
Now I think that has kind of died down since Tate died, and then all those red pillars got. But I think like right now everything's so politically divided that having someone with a youthful rhetoric is something that is kind of needed.
What do you mean youthful rhetoric? Isn't he like 40, 36? What? What do you mean?
So like,
or did you say useful? Did you say useful or youthful?
Useful.
Oh, okay. I don't think his rhetoric is useful.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I would disagree. I think, like, him analyzing these points and then coming to debates to these people who are like, oh, did you know that we spent all this millions of dollars? Now, what we have right now is we have a bunch of people, commenters, just repeating Trump's rhetoric with no evidence.
Sure. Well, to be clear, I don't think that we need the greatest intellect to counter Trump's rhetoric. So, you know, even if that's your argument, I don't think that we necessarily need Destiny. Optically, he looks terrible. Like and that's looking at it optically. Personally and emotionally, I think he's a disgusting human being that has absolutely no values. So, like, I don't think he's going to be helpful at all. I don't think that the counter to Trump is to try to lie as much as Trump and to be as much of a disgusting human being as Trump is. I think that there's going to need to be more meaningful pushback, but I don't think it's to completely devalue our side. And I just, on principle, I can't support somebody who's so fucking disgusting.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I just look at our alternatives. Our alternatives are pretty weak. Like, Dean, and then Dean's predecessor, Parker, or we have like Sam Cedar, we have Hassan.
A lot of young white guys. Yeah.
A lot of young white guys who aren't even taking the aggressive stance. They're just saying, show me the proof, show me this, instead of actually fighting the rhetoric.
Well, I think Sam Cedar is doing an okay job. I mean, that Do You Believe video was great.
That was great.
I watched it. I reacted to it.
I learned a lot from Mega.
He's a smart guy. I think he's good. Hassan, I'm not a huge fan of Hassan, but probably better than Destiny, just from moral value wise, optically, I'd say. I mean, he does downplay the genocide of Ukrainians, of course, which is not good. But I mean, I think he's disgusting too. He should get the platform too. But what are we going to do? I'm not going to support one, because the other one is still doing well. So yeah, I personally, I'm not going around trying to take the guy out. If he becomes popular again, good for him, I guess. I just think he's disgusting. I don't think he cares about the shit that he's done wrong. That would have been like the saving grace, is if he was like, yeah, that was pretty gross, I'm so sorry, about something, and meaningful. But it's just not there. So I can't support him. I can't do it. It's not going to happen for me. You know what I mean? I think that there's probably other people that could be better at the combating of misinformation than Destiny, honestly.
And that's fair. I just wanted to ask, what could be your opinion when all of his orbiters kind of start flocking back? I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying I feel like a lot of them are struggling, and I feel like it's not impossible. Like, I respect Dan for at least like staying with
Saltman.
Yeah, Dan Saltman.
He's only staying with him because he's financially bound to him. Of course, he's going to stay with him. But okay, but your question was like, what would I do, or how would I feel if people started flocking back to him?
Yeah,
this is what it is. I'm not like, I don't know. It is what I don't think that being a Destiny orbiter was ever necessarily a good idea. And I know that there was like a level of orbit. I was like Neptuning it because I would react to a lot of his content.
Yeah, you were in that call, right?
Which call? Okay, yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. I was in that call. It's not even really good in the long run anyway. If you can't make it on your own, you might as well just not even try to be a content creator. If there's somebody that goes and talks to him and then they're able to boost from that and like just the part, that makes more sense. But like, very toxic community in general. And like, you really just get bound to him. It's not really smart. If they want to go back and hang out there, be my guest, that's fine. But I don't know if he's ever going to take off again like he did. I could be wrong. Maybe like a couple of years from now. But yeah, I mean, if they do that, they do that. Like, I'm not gonna have a moral outrage over it. Like, it is what it is. I wouldn't be proud, like happy about it, I guess. But like, I'm trying not to give a shit. I don't even really look at Destiny stuff at all. So, last time I looked at his stuff was when he was apparently able to react to the Gavin Newsom conversation and on his stream, and I wasn't able to do it. And I got pissed off. I'm like, how did he do it? And I couldn't, So.
Yeah, and you just feel like you got suckered along the whole way.
Well,
I get that.
Yes, there is a level of that where I was like, okay, Destiny's like he's a little edgy, but I think he means well. And this was like the final straw. It wasn't the only thing. Him having a pattern of talking to seemingly unstable women, having sex with them, and then making content out of the fallout doesn't exactly scream particularly good. A lot of his past remarks are pretty disgusting. The jokes that he makes are unnecessary and incredibly immature. And I obviously am not particularly thrilled that he's somebody who decides not to live around his kid. So I think that's just shows disgusting moral value. So that's going to be a factor as well. There's really nothing riding for him. He can't even grow a full beard. Okay, there's really nothing riding for Destiny for me to be like, yeah, you know what, I could come back to this guy. I couldn't do that.
No, anytime your best defense is he's done worse stuff in the past, it makes you really question the person.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't know. He's done a lot of fucked up shit, He just has a community that is okay with it, so. Yeah. Is there, do you have any other questions, my friend?
I have some, stuff on Kamala.
All right.
If that matters.
Yeah, I'll give you, let's see what we got here. Give it to me. Give it to me.
First thing. Kamala is so black. That's not a setup for a joke, by the way.
No. You can't start with that. That's not a reasonable criticism. What do you mean?
No.
What?
Oh, wait, no. This is a positive for her. No, not a criticism.
Dude, all right. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. What do you got for me?
Okay. She went to a historic black college. She went to the first black sorority. Okay. She spent her time in California. supporting black activists, and
Okay.
I just think that like when people say that she's Asian and she's not black, you got to just look at the history too.
You scared the shit out of me. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you all that.
Boo.
All right, sure. I guess so. I mean, that's fair, I suppose.
Hey, keep on gooning and keep on fighting Glendon, Camden, Gerard Davis.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother. Take care.